We are joined tonight by Daahir, who has worked in building conservation and renovation for the last 15 years, specialising in plastering and rendering, including using natural and traditional materials. Following a training bursary from Heritage Crafts in 2021, he completed the William Morris Craft Fellowship in Traditional Lime Plaster and Render within the Society for the Protection of Ancient Buildings, SPAB, as most of you might know it. In 2024, he ran a successful pilot training programme introducing refugees and asylum seekers to building conservation and lime plastering. He's now working to build on this concept and develop and expand the programme further. Alongside his day job, Daahir has many active roles in a number of charities, including organisations supporting refugees' rights in Bristol, and more recently as a board member for the Building Limes Forum and a member of the Heritage Crafts Equality, Diversity and Inclusion Committee. So welcome, Daahir. Thank you very much for taking the time to join us tonight.
Hi, Tess. Thank you very much, and I'm really glad to be here. Hi to everyone as well. Thank you for joining us, and yeah, really looking forward to this evening. This is, an amazing opportunity to join in on the 52nd event of the In Conversation. So brilliant. Thank you very much for having me.
Yes, we're really glad you can be here. So, yeah, I guess it would be really great to get to know a little bit about you. If you could share a bit about kind of brought you into lime plastering, but also that kind of, journey in and to where we're up to today. So yeah, share away a little bit. That would be great.
Yeah, sure. So, well, so for everyone, obviously, who, know me, Daahir Mohamed, and those who don't know me as well. So I was born in Somalia in 1987 and grew up in Somalia, among my siblings and my extended family. And this was kind of my first real experience in obviously building conservation and heritage conservation work, really. But also, other than my skills and trades, I've worked alongside many organisations across Bristol in the early sort of 2020, sort of 2010 to 2016, where we've worked alongside locals from different backgrounds, whether from refugee background or other, offering a number of services. And this was all really something that always sort of sprung from my personal experiences that were at the time, but also seeing those around me who are also experiencing it in a similar way to me, and seeing maybe ways we can, do things and change things for the better between us. So that's kind of another side to me that is a side to the skills and heritage crafts skills that I've been honing over the years.
Gorgeous. So where did lime plaster come into things? Where did that start from? Where was the initial experience with it?
So the idea with the lime plaster, so it really, it's something that goes way back to sort of my childhood growing up. On one side of, with one of my grandmothers in rural Somalia, where we lived in this very small sort of compound with little tiny mud huts, and you'd have like a well about a few miles away, and you live in this little compound with a cow and chickens and a couple of other families in there. And every year when it rains, you sort of put the mud back on the walls and work together, and just becomes a really fun activity. So that really was the main sort of my earliest memories of plaster or working with heritage plasters and mud. And then eventually somehow I ended up training as a tool maker and metal fabricator, and that was really my sort of a key thing to use as a stepping stone to go into general building, to have a really good understanding on how to build a building from scratch and how to do all the different bits. And then I decided to specialize a bit more in plastering, and eventually it led on to lime work, because it just made more and more sense that you'd see all these historic buildings that also relate to some of the buildings that were left through colonialism in my country. When I left, I remember seeing these buildings that all had lime as well. So just sort of connecting the dots over time and bringing crafts and the things that I do every day within my heritage and connecting these things really made me really move towards lime and heritage crafts, really.
And so was there quite, so when you're based in Bristol initially, I know you've recently moved, but so in terms of Bristol and kind of starting out and starting out your business and things in Bristol, how did that work out?
Well, I've lived in Bristol for 18 years, actually. It was the first place that I've landed in, pretty much one of the first places I've landed in UK. And setting up a business there was, one of those incredible sort of challenge where you live in this amazing city where everything is moving and is happening, but at the same time there is the weather on the side where it rains most of the time, and then you're into this sort of heritage trade that often people didn't really understand at first very well, what lime was and what it meant to a heritage building. So explaining that often was quite a challenge in the business, but then eventually people sort of grew to sort of look a bit more in the needs of a home, and due to climate change and leaks and other things, I think, and also people are really waking up to reality of how old buildings and just wanted to be closer to their heritage. I think it's becoming a thing of today, and I'm really loving that.
Nice. Yeah, I think we're seeing a lot of support coming through for all sorts of heritage crafts and trades and things. But so do you really feel like there's a greater buy-in from individuals who are looking for, okay, I have my house, I need to renovate, and actually bringing in those really traditional skills rather than kind of making do and going with a modern alternative, which probably isn't best suited to the building. But yeah, do you feel like there's a shift and greater respect in that?
Absolutely, I would say so, especially over the past sort of 10, 15 years. I think there's been a big shift towards the use of breathable materials and materials that are friendly to a heritage building. And I think it's also the understanding of what's available out there and online is making things a bit more possible. And it's good because there's a lot of things, there's a lot of conversations around on social media and other places, especially around retrofit and looking after heritage buildings, combining with techniques that are both modern and traditional to actually really look after the heritage buildings of today, and making sure that we meet standards as well for insulation and for and also to deal with the weather changes, because it's getting worse and worse every year. So this is really, really important in the work that we do in lime work. It's actually, for me, it's really at the heart of all of that.
Amazing. Okay, so that's a little bit about how you kind of come into your craft a bit. So yeah, do you want to share a little bit more about specifically your craft skills and how you're looking at and applying them in your kind of everyday work at the moment?
Absolutely, yeah. Well, so my craft skills, luckily I've honed a number of skills. I'm a bit of a jack of all trade, and others I'm much better at it. But especially the plastering side of it, I think, is something that I really believe has a big there's a big need for it in the industry, and there aren't many people who do it, especially using breathable materials and understand really well how the buildings work, and the need for a building, for instance, for a particular type of a wall on a building, for instance, you could be using something that's a bit more water resistant or weather sort of resistant, for instance, than something that's a bit more sheltered and could use something a bit more breathable and more gentle. So it's really having that knowledge and that understanding, and going on the SPAB fellowship, that really gave me that experience and that knowledge, but also connected me with so many people in the industry who I could always sort of go back to and learn so much more from. So it's always been that sort of that drive and that desire to wanting to sort of understand better the buildings and heritage we're looking after, but also working with a number of local craftspeople, but also national organizations to actually connect the dots and make sure that there is a need for for people to go towards more crafts and trades that are more friendly for the buildings that we live in, but also people can make a living, can sort of look towards the connection of their culture and heritage within the buildings we work with. And what's really amazing is, when you look at a lot of the landmarks in the country, it's often, the architecture is often derived from a mixture of different cultures and different architectures and skills, and how that really reflects the skills and the work that we really do every day. Me as a Somali person, now I've moved to Norfolk, in a sort of a 300-year-old village pub, and I'm sitting down in my garden, sort of crushing brick, soft brick, to actually get my own porcelain to mix in the lime, but doing that in a way that kind of reminds me of how we used to do it back at home in Somalia, whilst I'm using techniques and products that are actually friendly to the materials that have been used in this building before. So leaving still my stamp and being part of this building's, story in the long run, but also bringing some of my own, background and a bit of my intangible culture with me everywhere I go. And I think making sure that those two could go hand in hand, and others also are able to sort of encourage and share their own as well, so that we can make a better workforce to look after our heritage.
Definitely. It's those threads, isn't it, that I think in so many skills and trades that you find yourself when you're in this kind of flow moment, and then this connection between what you're doing and creating with your hands and maybe past memories and traditions. Like, there's these beautiful threads that come through. So it's really lovely to hear that kind of transposing from kind of Somalia and all the way through from Birmingham, Bristol up to Norfolk too. It's it's no differences.
Yeah, and it's really great to sort of have been exposed to so many great craftspeople across the country, and professionals, whether they're architects or engineers, and everyone's always been really keen and willing to sort of offer their time and expertise to share. And at the same time, I look on the other side, where a lot of my community members, whether they're from my background or other backgrounds, who don't necessarily have the same experiences or the same sort of opportunities in and access to what I sort of have been exposed to. I think it makes me want to obviously share, and makes me want to sort of make sure that there is these opportunities are a bit available, but also that we actually fill a very important sort of gap in the industry, because there is just about 2 to 4% of diversity in the industry, and I know so many people who are very keen to get involved and learn and look after the heritage of this country and also their country. And Aham is a great example. Aham didn't know about lime when he first heard about the training program we were putting together on the pilot project back in April. And since he came on the program, he came on to work with me on a work experience for a number of weeks, paid work experience, and then came on full time with me, and where he was really able to exercise really well the skills that he's been building up with me over the past few months, to a point where he was able to actually do a full rendering job on his own. And that's when I thought maybe this is a good idea to actually go towards further training and courses. And thanks to the bursary from Heritage Crafts and City and Guild, I think this is really going to help him out in the next stage of his courses and career. And I think this is what it really all is about. Is putting people forward and exposing them to the crafts and trades that they can also use for them, for a career, but also find a connection within it for their own history and intangible culture as well.
Yeah, definitely. Do you want to share a little bit about the pilot project? I think it's probably a really good opportunity to talk about it. Then we can talk a little bit about Ian and his bursary that he's recently received. But yeah, do you want to talk a little bit about the pilot as a whole? And then I think we've got some videos and bits and pieces we can look at as well.
Sure, yeah. So on the pilot project, I was thinking for about a year or so to sort of put something together. Again, just work with underrepresented groups and just, give opportunities to people who wouldn't have necessarily had the opportunity to go into, to have a sort of a taster session in building conservation and then go from there. So with the help of amazing organizations across the country, where there is, the SPAB, the Queen Elizabeth Scholarship Trust, Heritage Crafts, and many, many more, City and Guild, so many organizations really got together to support me on this pilot project to actually put it together. And with just about £5,000 and the amazing Limpley Stoke Community Society, it's a long word. They've been incredible at sort of offering us the space to actually come and train individuals who are, who want to understand what building conservation is about, and working with local communities from different backgrounds, including inviting homeowners who are, really keen to work with tradespeople. So really bringing everyone in the same space and sharing and understanding and learning about building crafts, and especially lime, in a live site hosted in a community space. I think, it was just a really brilliant experience, and a way to showcase as well what we could really achieve together when, if we make use of all the sites around available to actually train people. So that was a 3-day long course where we were looking at different types of lime plasters, whether it is base coat, scratch coat, and finishing coat, as well as insulated plasters and other modern sort of materials that are really useful and ideal for historic buildings. Along with that, we've also done a site visit that was hosted by St Paul's Cathedral, and we had a sort of a personal sort of tour, which was really amazing and really inspired individuals from different backgrounds like Aham, Majid, and everyone else who was on the course. Of course, this has been, the aim was really to spark an interest, and in building conservation and crafts. It wasn't just about lime plastering, it was about just a spark an interest and a foot in the door. So the aim was to sort of showcase what an amazing heritage building looks like seeing St Paul's Cathedral, and then going into a space where we actually go in, work on a live site, then have an individual from, who could actually give us a bit of a background of the history of British architecture and how it overlaps with different cultures and different backgrounds. So it was really, this was a really good way to sort of showcase how we could really bring people who've never really heard about this into appreciating and having a leg in the industry. And it's been really successful as a result. Aham has been an amazing, sport. It's been just enjoying throughout the whole process, and just kind of constantly asking for more. So I've got to find some placements for him now. So going on to the sort of follow up from the pilot project. It just makes, for me, the next thing is really important to think about this next stages for individuals who've now got a good foot in the industry. What do we do to sort of support them, and how can we sort of simplify it? And especially when individuals are from different backgrounds, where things need to be tailored accordingly, I think. So I've put together another pilot project in accordance with Aham's bursary to go along with him and basically organize specific training programs with individuals across the country who are kind of at the best of their game in a sense. So the aim is to go and visit someone in Scotland like Tim Meek, and then potentially meet also with a material scientist, Bill Reevy, and then there are also a live site that I've put together. Well, I've been in contact with an amazing guy called Richard from Lime Ridge, who is working on this amazing castle, where they're doing rendering work as well as internal traditional lime plaster, lath and plaster, as well as insulated plasters. So this is a great sort of opportunity to get your hands on in an array of techniques and plaster finishes as well.
Definitely. I guess the notion of with Aham's bursary is the opportunity to go and do and spend meaningful time on different projects all across the country. But I guess the key is that you can get to see other individuals and learn how they work in different ways. So you get that input from those masters and working at the top of their game. But also working on different environments and buildings and understanding the needs of those buildings in an individual way. So, do you want to share a little bit more about those specifics?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is, really a lot, well, mainly the placements that I'm really putting together in with the help of the SPAB, Pip Sadine, who's the fellowship officer, who usually puts placements like that together and is incredible at it. So, you know, I'm always at her mercy in terms of finding exactly the right projects and the right people. Yeah, so the aim is to really, you know, plan and curate placements where I will actually go along with him and, you know, give him really the theory that is really backed with science as well and with facts, so that we can come back and actually put those things to practice. And then eventually there'll be also further opportunities to actually go in more tailored, practical, sort of hands-on courses where, you know, that will give you more sort of practical side of it. But it really is important that you're exposed to different environments, different elements, and also meet different people who have different opinions, just so that you can really form an, you know, an informed decision as well eventually, because
You have
it's
that
really
rounded input, don't you? The opportunity to, okay, great, I really love this direction, or it's really helpful to know that, but it doesn't necessarily feel quite right for me and my style. And all those things start to layer up to kind of build that rounded opportunity, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And these are all, you know, people who are, you know, working and really giving their time for free, but know that these, you know, these opportunities is a one-off for most of us. So, and often it comes with a, you know, free accommodation and free other, you know, few other things, which it really comes in handy when you're, you know, going on a training program and something that can be quite intensive and still having to sort of make do with little money you've got. There's so many amazing people across the country, and I think you've got to just sort of know who to meet and who, you know, would be the best suit and the best project at the time. And I think this is what I'm really sort of bringing in for someone like AHEM and groups like AHEM, where we can tailor you know, visits to them that is quite specific. And you know, when I look at really the input into someone like AHEM this year and the whole program, the pilot project, which costed about £5,000, and I look at the sort of the outcome of it over the next 5 years and the potential in terms of if you sort of equate that into, if you monetize that in a sense, I think, you know, the outcome would be around sort of more than £500,000 from the investment of £5,000. So it's a bit of a no-brainer to be able to actually offer, you know, small opportunities to individuals and actually support initiatives like mine that brings people from different backgrounds into loving what is, you know, our heritage and common heritage.
Yeah, and it's that individual approach as well, isn't it? It's understanding what's going to work for that individual, how they learn best, how they can giving them the enablers to be able to get them to those locations without having to think about all of the logistics that go with that. Because actually, if we can kind of nurse and encourage them, keep that enthusiasm there, it's kind of set for life. It's a really great opportunity.
Absolutely. And I think, you know, I'm not necessarily trying to reinvent the wheel. I mean, I know that the SPAB is already has been offering, you know, an amazing fellowship, which I have been on for, you know, for 6 months. And that's given me so much. And I'm just trying to sort of figure out a way of also making a slice of that available to others who wouldn't necessarily have the opportunity even in the next couple of years. So, and the aim is, this is all part of a network as well, sort of, you know, national organizations and people who are doing something similar or something that could really add to those individuals who want to sort of build their skills and heritage knowledge and so on. And I think, you know, for instance, having the starting point where I offer just tasters of training programs, and then individuals can go on to a more, you know, intense training program with potential apprenticeship opportunities, or, you know, there are so many opportunities that are out there. And I think just working in partnership and in relationship with people who are organizations who are both local and national, I think is really important. But also making sure that there is a supply, you know, the supply and demand is there as well, because you've got to make sure that the work is there, but also the, you know, the people are there as well to do the work, and the training is in place, and the national organizations and both local organizations have the adequate funding as well to actually implement these things. So everyone really needs, you know, that extra support to make this happen. And
it's also trying to create that network that's supportive. So where there are multiple organisations involved, as an individual going through that, is to try and buffer that as much as possible then, so that it's a really joined up and coherent space.
Absolutely.
Everyone's working together for the same goal. So let's kind of grease those wheels and make it as easy as possible for that individual moving through it.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's you know, it's been the best sort of experience so far, where, you know, having the support of so many organisations like, you know, Bath Preservation Trust, who've kindly offered to sponsor a couple of future attendees of the courses, and you know, people like that, as well as, you know, English Heritage, Nicola Duncan Finn has been an amazing support as well, where she's introduced me to all the local organisations in Norfolk, and just made amazing connections where now we can go forward towards sort of putting the right sort of support in place for people from different backgrounds in for building conservation and heritage trades.
It would be really great. So before we go too much into things to come, which is really exciting, it would be really nice to peel back just a little bit to a project that you were involved in with the Hot Pole Inn. So if you want to share a little bit about that, I know we've got a video that would be really lovely to build in as well, but it was a great project, not only with the I think it's everybody's involvement, from the community around that to everyone involved in their trade skills as well. So do you want to share a little bit of background about it? And
yeah, of course. Yeah. So the Hot Pole, I mean, I was invited in to the Hot Pole to do some plastering work, and at the time I was looking for a way of getting this training program up and running, and they were just very kindly sort of said, well, look, we'll offer you the space, and this is what we want to use the space for as well, while we're, you know, restoring the old pub. So the Hot Pole is a historic pub for about 500 years old, and the local community bought it to reinstate it and as a local pub. So they've fundraised a lot of money to do the work and basically hire the appropriate sort of conservation architects and tradespeople. And this was just an amazing opportunity for us to go and do the course there, because we were hosted with, you know, open arms, where all the local community would come in every day. We would when we were doing the course, and come and say hi and bring their dogs and kind of offer some biscuits and cakes and you know,
biscuits are important.
It's, you know, things like that. But also just, you know, a big thank you to James Simpson, who from Field and Clegg Bradley Studio, who actually really put a lot of this together for us in terms of making use of the pub and working with us and the community organisation as well. And even so that he, you know, opened his house every day preparing lunch for all of us, and we'd all go up there and have lunch and discuss about what we've been learning and different things, and then come back down and do some work. So it's overall, I mean, it's just been an experience where it really brought everyone together, and it's created a really strong sense of community, not just among the individuals who were on the course with me, but also everyone who were just coming in, and, you know, everyone felt that we were part of something much bigger than just us. So
yes, amazing. Yeah. Well, I think it would be a great opportunity to watch the video. It's not too long, but yes, it gives a really nice insight as to, yeah, just some of the love that has gone into this pub. It's just amazing.
Absolutely.
Shall I show the ITV film or the one that you sent through?
Yeah, I think ITV film would be great.
Okay, I'll
ITV,
share that now.
It's a pub being saved by the community of Limpley Stoke in Bath. But inside, it's also a classroom where refugees are being given the chance to learn the traditional skill of lime plastering, taught by someone who is not only a master craftsman from Bristol, but who came here as a refugee from Somalia.
So often when a person from a refugee background spends years waiting for an answer for their status so that they can actually work in the country, then when they're granted, they're left on their own with no support. It just made sense that, you know, encouraging individuals who've already been in that industry before to actually take this on board. And I think instead of looking elsewhere for workers, let's upskill our local refugees and asylum seekers and wider community.
And for Aham, who fled Syria for the safety of the UK, this training has given him hope.
I met Daahir a few months ago, but before that I was not sure about what to do, very confused. When I saw him talking about the job and everything, I got very excited and said, yes, this is the opportunity I was waiting for. I'm trying to get better and better in this job, and Daahir is trying to encourage me to do more and more and learn quickly.
The Hot Poles building is 500 years old, so traditional lime plaster is essential for the conservation of this pub. And the techniques and materials Daahir uses are part of his own history.
Growing up in Somalia, especially in my early years, I remember living in a very small hut in a small village, and every year we would basically replaster the outer walls of the hut with clay plaster and cow manure. Funnily enough, this is probably the third time that I'm using cow manure as plaster on a wall in England, and it brings a lot of connection between my past and my present.
Until villagers stepped in to buy the pub, the Hot Pole was going to be sold to developers. But the building was so run down, it has needed the support from a whole community of people to restore it.
It's already giving back enormously, where people are giving whatever they can give. Some people are coming with words of advice, some people are bringing expertise, they're bringing their labour, their hard work, they're bringing their money, but they're also bringing their skills and using those skills to teach other people. I think that's what's the most heartwarming part of this project, is that people's lives are being changed already in this project.
It's a meaningful job. When you think about the history of the place, it's part of the community here. They want it like as beautiful as it was before, and we are working on that.
Daahir and Aham are now very much part of the story of this building, as skills from their own heritage are being used to preserve the future of this traditional English pub. Victoria Davis, ITV News, Limpley Stoke.
It's really lovely. It's a really lovely snapshot and insight into the community and the project that went with it. So I would love to know a little bit. So you've mentioned about we've kind of that web of networks that you've kind of found your way through and have supported you in your work so far. So yeah, who kind of sticks in your mind in terms of skill sharing, in terms of lime plaster and things? Who sticks in your mind that as a like an aha moment or something that really clicked that's kind of sticks with you today?
That's a very difficult question, because there are so many people that I've learned from, and they're all incredible. But I think I always go back to those who've really not only shared an amazing skill and kind of showed me something that I've never seen before, but also showed me a side of them, in a sense, and a side that of an individual that I've never seen. And I think that's what often I use as an inspiration as well to everything I do. So, but yeah, I think I'd say the main person I'd always think about is Michael O'Reilly, because an amazing plasterer in his 70s, retired now, but always keen to sort of take up fellows and people who are really keen on learning the skill. And one of the things I always noticed with him is every time I learn something from him in his workshop, we go on a break, but he kind of doesn't follow. He stays in the workshop and continues doing it, although he's not meant to be doing that anyway. He's here to just show us. So, someone like that just is someone that I've learned so much from as well. And I'm sure many master plasterers that today I've learned so much from him as well. So yeah,
I think most makers definitely find themselves in that moment of catching yourself off guard or thinking, oh, that's exactly what so and so would think.
Absolutely,
and it's really lovely. It's that fostering of how those skills are being passed on. It's not just the practical skills, it's the application of those and the storytelling that goes with it as well. It's really gorgeous.
Absolutely. I mean, what I've really loved is the fact, the way he tells the story of the beginning of lime plaster or beginning of plaster, all the way to now, and kind of showcases through, samples on his walls. And you look at each section of his walls, it tells the story of plaster. And I think, just having access to people like that, I think is incredible, but also, enabling others to sort of benefit from what we've benefited from. I think it's what it is all about. So, and other people that really, have learned so much from, who are not necessarily in the plastering industry, are, carpenters or even scientists, who are just sort of sharing their findings and the details of everything. And I think that is so important in today's building conservation work, because I don't think knowledge should just be based on 35 years of plastering. I think it should also be based on, the facts that we have today as well. So there's that side to things. But I always believed in, bringing communities together and bringing the side of the work that I do, and the side of also the social equality that I think has always been part of my life, and it's always been something that I've also had direct experience in. So I feel, I'm well placed to, I guess, bring along others who are experiencing the same thing, or have experienced the same thing as I have, in the same position as I am, and others as well. And what's really amazing is everyone is also keen and waking up to the idea and wanting to support what we do. And what we do is just basically wanting to be part of this heritage and make it last longer. And we see ourselves in it, so we're not going anywhere,
It's an amazing, I think it's an amazing opportunity to bring fresh eyes and interest into a craft, and understanding your journey so far. I'd say the word journey, but like your experiences so far, and to know that there are doors opening. So do you want to share a little bit about, kind of looked at your skills a bit, but kind of where do you see yourself in the next 5 years, and the work that you want to be doing and creating around plastering?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think in the next 5 years, I think I see myself in a position where I'm really sort of working closely with more and more sort of local and national organizations in supporting individuals in the direction of vocational trades, and just simplifying the sort of process for that as well, because I think there is a big sort of a gap in the system somewhere, and I think we can all sort of chip in to do that. So I see myself really sort of taking part in that, but also developing and building a sort of a local workforce that can help me also look after the buildings that I can't look after myself. I think there's a bit of a selfish side to it as well. No, honestly, I think I just see myself being a part of something bigger than me, and I think there's plenty to choose from. It's just which one do you go for, and I think I found my spot.
Amazing. So, Daniel, do you want to just flag? You've just mentioned that there's a question that might be relevant in the chat. Is that right?
Yeah, should we go to Biz and see what questions will come in through the chat?
Yeah, we had one earlier that I think, Daahir, you talked probably a bit for the first half of this question, but I think we can lean a little more in the second half. But James in the comment section has asked, he says, "Hi, I'm the vice chair of the Regency Society of Brighton and Hove, and there are many amenity and local conversation groups across the country. Do you have experience and involvement with such organizations, and what that experience has been like?" Which I think you've talked a lot about the organizations you've partnered with. If there's more you'd like to share that might be similar to the Regency Society, feel free. But then the other part to this question was, how can such organizations help to cultivate talent, especially diverse talent? By the way, we have lots of lime rendering, and we would welcome you to speak to the people in the Regency City. So.
Amazing. Well, thank you very much. I mean, I'd love to come and speak and look at some lime rendering work as well. I I think, so just to answer to the second question, I think organizations can help in ways that, where they could enable individuals like me, just like Heritage Crafts and City and Guild and all the other organizations who were involved in the pilot project and who supported it from the beginning. And everything really happened quite quickly at the end. And I think the ways that organizations can help is really ensure that there is a simplified process for individuals like me to actually come up with an idea and run with it, and make sure that there is some form of accountability, but a bit of a leeway for individuals to actually tailor it to the needs of people they're working with. And I think giving people that bit of freedom, but also I think the idea of partnership, I think it's really, really important that there are many partners involved, because everyone can play a very, very small role without having to break their backs. So that's really important in making something happen, especially in ensuring that an individual that doesn't necessarily have all the support or all the knowledge and skills to sort of do the the bureaucratical side of things and deliver a project, that can be a bit of a challenge. So it's just sort of making sure that there are simplified processes in place for people like me who want to sort of put some things together to support individuals. For sure, I think the more partners who can chip in terms of either in-kind support or, for instance, Nicola Duncan-Finn English Heritage has offered me to sort of use one of their spaces if I wanted to run a course, for instance. And I think just a small thing like that would, cut down on the cost, but also just building connections and relationship among organizations through that way. I think it also opens doors for everyone down the line.
And it's also that interesting when you mention around like funding. So we provide opportunities to support individuals, but also and businesses, I guess, through the Endangered Craft Fund too. But that notion of you knowing what you need to run the project and it coming from you, rather than having a set thing that you're trying to make a project work for. Trying to break down those barriers.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think that it's really important that you're, able to just simplify be clear on what you're going to do and how you're going to do it, and then find an organization that can host it. And then, with the right partners, I think these things can really happen. But again, it is a lot of work and a lot of energy needs to go into it. And I think, it's a great way of making things sort of just starting something and then see where it goes. I think it's a good way to do that. Could you remind me the first question, because I wasn't very clear about the first question?
Yeah, it was asking about other organizations like maybe the Regency Society of Brighton and Hove that you've worked with in the past, or have you been involved with organizations like that?
So I've mostly been involved with local organizations in Bristol for many years. So with national organizations, I've only sort of been involved with them, to be honest, since sort of 2022 onwards. Sorry, 2022 onwards. It's only about 2 years. I think it's not easy for individuals to necessarily have a natural desire to join an organization with, whether it's a conservation organization or, I think often you've got to offer an incentive, and often the incentive is not necessarily there because everyone is kind of tied up with work and lack of funding and lack of support. And I think I say that for both, smallest organizations to the biggest organizations. I think the problem is really there for everyone. So everyone would like to do more and would want to do a lot more, but it's just, sometimes it's true, hands are tied up, It's a fact, honestly. So anyway.
Fair.
So,
we
have
had
we got
another
another
question.
Biz?
Yeah, we do. But I might let Fleur ask a question because I might butcher it. It's a technical question to hear, and there's some words in there that I think my American accent might be not so pretty with. So Fleur, if you want to ask it yourself, you're welcome to. Otherwise I can give a go. All right, I will.
Yeah, brilliant.
Oh,
Yeah,
cool.
when you did fantastic. Hi, Daahir. Lovely to hear you speaking. Lovely to hear about your journey. Fantastic. Just wanted to just check in with you, Daahir. Fascinated to hear what the additive you were talking about in your clay plaster. I think it sounded like Carmelite or something, but I didn't really get what it was.
Oh, sorry.
Right, is that a fibre or a pozzolan? I must have completely misheard.
Oh no, sorry. We used cow manure
Oh,
and lime.
Calvio, beg your
Yeah,
pardon, my
yeah.
misunderstanding. Okay, fantastic. Okay, yeah, brilliant. Thank
I
you.
can give you the recipe if you like.
Thank you.
That's a coveted thing. The recipes are all the coveted things.
Thank you.
Thanks, Fleur.
Thank you, Fleur.
Okay, so where do you see yourself moving through with the next kind of steps? And if you had a magic wand or £1 million, what would you do with that to help enable kind of next steps for what you're looking to do?
Yeah, that's a good question. What would I do with £1 million?
It's a good question for everyone.
Yeah. So what I would do, I think so I have put together a number of proposals that to support the work that I'm doing in terms of upskilling and training individuals from different backgrounds. And put together, so the pilot project that we've done earlier this year, so for instance, I would do at least 5 or 6 of those a year to actually, spark an interest and at least, bring about 50 to 100 people a year who are interested in the trade and then who are looking to go to the next stage. So I would spend a bit of money on that. And that would probably require a space where I can actually run those spaces. So it's amazing to have also make these connections where, there might be opportunities to have a free space here and work with this person and that person. But I would also push, through this idea of the stepping stones, which is basically about taking 5 individuals a year who have, adequate skills and want to learn the trade of lime plastering and actually take them 3 days a month on different sites and curate, site visits and placements where I would go along with them and actually really ensure that there's a really intensive learning process. And in between time, also ensure that there are some potential work experience with other firms and potential training courses with organizations like Carrington Lime, for instance, who are amazing at training people. So really, connecting the dots and making sure that there is a really amazing program that is simplified but also tailored to individuals from different backgrounds, over the course of 5 years. And I think for 1 million, what I can do in 5 years, I think, I can. I've done some maths already, so I'm not going to talk about it too much. But these are all in proposals that I've been working on. But it would be an amazing. It would make a huge difference, I think, in terms of what I can achieve with £1 million. I think it would probably equate to £5 million in 5 years in terms of social value.
Gorgeous. So with you mentioned definitely within the refugee community, some of like those barriers that individuals receive along their journeys, but what are some of those barriers that can be broken down and enablers kind of through this program, especially with the pilot? What barriers have been broken down in that?
I think so many barriers, and I think a lot of barriers that are not necessarily obvious as well. Just simple ones, for instance, travel arrangements, for instance. So if your training center is not local or it's not next to a train station or something like that, you're inviting people from different backgrounds to come there, it can be a bit challenging. So you've got to get organized and ensure that there is someone to sort of potentially collect people from here and there when it's needed. And just sort of simplifying the learning process, because you're not necessarily talking to a group of people who are from here, so you're kind of having to adjust the language and also credibility is a really important thing as well, because you know, if I am a sort of a tall, dark, you know, I don't know, if I look quite different to what I look right now, it'd probably be difficult for a lot of the people that I work with to relate to me and actually trust me to offer them an idea that, you know, could support them. So I think what I'm really doing is unique in its own way, and I don't think there are other people from a similar background who are actually offering a building conservation trade opportunity and a route to that. But also the fact that national organisations are embracing the initiatives and also welcoming me into sort of helping shape the way the future of you know, relationships and partnerships and could sort of look like in future. I think it's amazing, and we couldn't have been in a much better time, I'd say anyway. I feel like I've kind of landed at the perfect moment.
Gorgeous. And then I guess it's that notion of, it's amazing that you're providing this opportunity and you have the, I say capacity in amongst half-term antics that you are navigating as well at the moment. But the notion of wanting to kind of really invest in this and to share your skills and to offer those opportunities. But actually it's not, there's so much learning that could be transferred into other disciplines and working in other materials and other opportunities with other heritage skills as well, that actually as a pilot, it's really offering so much insight as to how we can do more and learn quicker to kind of break down these barriers and yeah, offer these opportunities out further.
Absolutely, and I think these barriers, you know, there are barriers for both, you know, underrepresented communities or groups, and also local young British people as well. And I think those barriers are not all the same, but the approach in breaking those barriers and sort of overcoming the barriers, but also the need to actually bring in more craftspeople in the industry. I think my approach has proven and shown so far that it's possible for both groups. And I think there's some possibilities, you know, some things to learn from it, not just on a national level, but I think that could potentially be global. Yeah, I feel like I'm blowing my own trumpet, but all I'm saying is everyone, you know, I think the main thing that I really want to share the most here is my skills and knowledge and everything that I've acquired so far. Thanks to everyone that shared it with me. None of it really belongs to me. I'm just a guardian of it. So all I'm doing is just passing it on to others, just like others have passed it on to me. So what better to pass it on to those who actually, you know, could really use as well. So that's really the approach and the understanding and everything that I do, where it comes from.
Well, that feels like a really great moment to kind of pause and see if there are any other questions coming in. So we're due to wrap up in 5 minutes, so it's a really nice way to wrap up slightly. So yeah, as I mentioned beforehand, we've in our most recent training bursary round, we've supported 2 individuals to come into the trade of lime plastering. Which is really gorgeous to see. So we've got Aham and Joe Lancaster as well, which is really, really, really wonderful. But also just to understand that those networks are becoming more established and to kind of challenge those opportunities and bring in, yeah, opportunities in a rounded way. Right, have we got any other questions or anyone would like to say or share anything in particular?
It doesn't look like we have, but I've got a question if we've got time. I wanted to ask about your move to here from the West Country to East Anglia. Have you noticed a big difference in the vernacular architecture of the 2 regions, and is that part of the reason you moved there? And are there a lot of buildings in need of your services? Is that part of it?
Yeah, well, one of the main reasons we've moved here is to be closer to family. But what I've mainly noticed is, well, the vernacular is definitely different. So there is, you know, flint here, a bit more chalky, and you know, soft bricks. Really beautiful architecture here. Norfolk is quite particular, especially around the coast as well. So there's definitely a big difference in the architecture, but also in the number of churches there is can you imagine Norwich? There's so many churches in Norwich. I mean, so I had the privilege to spend a morning with Oliver from Norwich Churches Preservation Trust, who look after about 18 medieval churches in Norwich, whom are within sort of a couple of miles of each, within a couple of miles, actually, all of them, I'd say pretty much. So imagine everywhere you turn as you walk in Norwich, you're kind of like greeted with an amazing medieval church.
Proper sweet shop.
Incredible. So I've already been there many, many times before I even had the chance to go and visit it with him. So, there's an amazing array of vernacular and buildings, and the amount of work here, I think, that needs doing as well is incredible. And notice as well, there aren't many plasterers and many people who are doing enough to look after historic buildings. So there's a huge need to upskill people around here. And the other thing I noticed, the East is drier than the West. Just saying. So I've moved, it's great. I was working at the Hot Pole in April. Hot Pole was, an amazing building, but located, right among the hills in Bath, and just a bit more of a damper environment, where here I live in a new pub. Well, not a new pub, 300-year-old pub as well, but everywhere is dry in the pub. So I'm like, oh, this is going to be great for doing plastering in Norfolk. Like, I'll be able to actually start a job and finish a job within one season.
Hopefully it'll stop raining at some point. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's been fantastic. We're getting up to time, so I'm just going to say a few words before handing back to Tess to wrap up. But it's been a fantastic session, really inspiring. I wanted to thank everyone for attending. Let me just find the right button. And thank you particularly to those who donated when signing up. It's really appreciated. We are a small charity and we don't receive any public funding, so any contributions are more than welcome. We do also say that the best way to support us is to become a member, because not only are you providing a little bit of continuous funding for us that we can rely on as part of our core, but also you're lending your voice to our growing movement that we're creating around this support for traditional heritage skills in the UK. And we really rely on that when we're doing our advocacy work with government, having that mandate of a big body of members behind us to support that work. So I just wanted to say that before wrapping up. But as I say, it's been fantastic. It's always inspiring to hear you, Daahir, and I'm going to hand back to Tess now just to wrap up.
Thank you so much. Daahir, a huge thank you for joining us tonight and squeezing it into your very, very busy schedule. I hope you have a great rest of the half term and manage to have some lovely time with someone. Thank you everyone for coming along. It's a really amazing opportunity for us to not only showcase incredible makers and tradesmen working in incredible areas, and to get a little sneak peek as to what their worlds are like. But it's just a really great opportunity to celebrate the richness of craft across the UK, and to see some of that energy being put into it. So Daahir, anything you'd like to finish up with?
Well, I just want to say a huge thank you to everyone who's supported me along the way, and a particular thank you to Jeff Rich, who's been an amazing mentor and a personal supporter, and Heritage Crafts for putting this together as well. Tess has been amazing, and I'm really happy to have been the first person you've done this conversation with. And yeah, thank you all so much.
Gorgeous. Well, have a lovely rest of the evening, everyone. Thank you for sharing the time with us. And if you're catching up on record, or if you've got any questions, then feel free to ping us an email through the Heritage Craft website, and we can come back to you.
Brilliant.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Bye,
everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.